7 continents, 7 creatures. No people knew the others existed, and every single one of them described the same thing. There is a pattern that no scientist can ignore. In cultures separated by oceans and centuries, with no contact between them, peoples around the world describe the same creature. Large, bipedal, covered in fur, more human than any known animal, more animal than any human should ever be. The Native Americans called it Sasquatch. The Tibetans called it Yeti. And every continent has its version. 7 creatures. 7 completely different geographies. One question that science has still not answered: what is behind all of this? Let us start close to home. Not in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. In the swamps of Florida. In the middle of the Everglades. Welcome to the skunk ape. The name says it all. Because the first thing witnesses describe is not the size or the appearance. It is the smell. An odor that combines skunk, rotting meat, and rotten eggs mixed with stagnant swamp water. A smell so specific and so consistent across descriptions, spanning decades, that it has become the creature signature. Bipedal, between 5 feet and 6.5 feet tall, covered in reddish-brown fur, with red eyes that glow in the dark. The Seminoles, the native people of Florida, had a name for it before the colonizers arrived. They called it Estikapkaki, the tall man. That means the story did not begin with tourists and fire chiefs. It began thousands of years earlier in those same forests with those same descriptions. We crossed the ocean. Australia has no native primates. None. 0. The mammals of Australia evolved in isolation for 65 million years. You should not find a large bipedal primate there. Biology says that is impossible. And yet the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, with more than 65,000 years of oral history, documented long before European colonizers arrived, describe a creature called the yowie. Enormous, bipedal, covered in fur, with red eyes and visible fangs, between 5 and 9 feet tall. And unlike the American Bigfoot, frequently described as aggressive, there are accounts of yowies tearing the heads off kangaroos, of attacking dogs, of threatening humans. When European colonizers arrived and encountered Australia, they quickly began publishing newspaper accounts of tall hairy figures seen in clearings. The creature remained. Across all of Australia for 65,000 years, people from different cultures describe the same thing on a continent where biology does not support the existence of such a creature. Now we reach the creature that keeps cryptozoologists awake at night. Not from fear, from hope. The orang pendek is the only serious cryptid with formal scientific expeditions, DNA samples analyzed in university laboratories, and researchers who dedicated 15 and 20 years of their careers to it. Orang pendek means short person in Indonesian. A bipedal primate between 3 feet and 5 feet tall, covered in golden or brown fur, with broad shoulders and strength disproportionate to its size. It walks upright. That matters. Gibbons and orangutans do not walk that way. In 2009, the Center for Fortean Zoology collected hair samples that were sent to the University of Copenhagen for DNA analysis. The results did not match any catalog species. Let me repeat that. DNA from hair collected in Sumatra did not match any known primate species. One researcher said if he had to put a probability on the existence of the orang pendek, he would say 99%. 21st century Sumatra has unidentified DNA in university labs. That is a difference worth underlining. In 1980, the Chinese government sent more than 100 researchers into the interior of Hubei province. Scientists, experts, an official state-funded expedition to investigate a creature the Chinese call the Yuran, the wild man. Think about that for a moment. A government sending more than 100 specialists to hunt a cryptid. Written records about wild men in Hubei exist as far back as 340 BC, during the Warring States period. The Xinhua news agency estimated 400 sightings in recent decades. These are not rumor numbers. They are documented numbers. The Yuran is described as tall, between 6 and 8 feet, covered in reddish-brown fur, generally non-aggressive, more likely to be spotted at a distance than to confront directly. In 2012, American professor Jeff Meldrum and Chinese researcher Zhou Guoxing published a joint scientific paper analyzing plaster casts from the region, concluding that the morphology did not match bears, but showed characteristics of bipedal locomotion similar to primates. The previous creatures are unidentified primates, large, intimidating, but fundamentally animals. The almas is different. It may not be a primate at all. It may be a human. Almas means wild man in Mongolian. And the fundamental difference between the almas and every other cryptid on this list is that the locals do not describe it as an animal. They describe it as a person. An uncivilized person, without language, without fire, without advanced tools, but a person. The physical description corresponds detail by detail to what paleoanthropologists know about the anatomy of Homo neanderthalensis. The most disturbing case is that of Zana. In the mid-1800s, in Abkhazia, a female almaz was reportedly captured and kept by villagers for decades. She was described as extremely strong, covered in fur, incapable of language, but able to learn simple tasks. She reportedly had children with men from the village, children who grew up as normal humans. DNA samples from her descendants were collected and analyzed. Preliminary results suggested sub-Saharan African ancestry from very ancient populations, consistent with an archaic human population that would never have reached that region according to historical migration maps. If in some remote valley of the Altai, small populations of an ancestral human species survived, while we believed all our evolutionary relatives had vanished, that question keeps me up more than anything else. You are in the Brazilian Amazon. It is late at night, and something that smells of rot and bile is approaching. You hear a roar that sounds less like an animal and more like the thick voice of something that should not have a voice. And then you see it, a creature 8 feet tall, covered in tangled reddish fur, with backward curving claws, walking slowly on 2 legs. And when it stops and turns, you see an opening in the middle of its abdomen. A second mouth, staring at you. Welcome to the Mapinguari. The giant ground sloth existed in the Americas until approximately 10,000 years ago. These creatures weighed several tons, had enormous curved claws, and had an abdominal scent gland that researchers speculate may have been mistaken for a second mouth by human observers. The skin of some species had bone fragments embedded in it, making it effectively resistant to attack. The first humans in South America arrived and found these creatures. They hunted them. They feared them. And they told stories about them that were passed down through generations for 10,000 years. The Amazon has more than 1.5 million square miles, much of it never stepped on by scientists. A creature that weighs several tons could be hiding in there, and we simply have not gone far enough to find it. We have arrived at the last one. For the Sherpas, the peoples who have inhabited the high altitudes of the Himalayas for centuries, who know these mountains better than any living person, the Yeti is not a creature from a children's story. It is a real presence, respected and feared. In serious accounts, the Yeti is described as large, between 6 and 8 feet tall, covered in dark fur, not white. The abominable name came from a mistranslation. In 1921, a Sherpa called the creature Meto Kangmi, dirty snowman. A journalist translated Meto as abominable instead of dirty. The nickname stuck. The reality was lost in translation. In 1951, mountaineer Eric Shipton photographed footprints on the Menlong Glacier at more than 20,000 feet of altitude. Each footprint measured nearly 13 inches in length. The photos were examined by experts who ruled out bear, ape, and human. Reinhold Messner, the greatest mountaineer in history, the first man to summit Everest without oxygen, claims to have encountered the Yeti multiple times. He wrote a book. He is not a lunatic. He is the man who climbed the highest mountains in the world and says he found something there that should not exist. 7 creatures, 7 continents, 1 pattern. The skunk ape in the swamps of Florida, the yowie in the aboriginal wilderness of Australia, the orang pendek in the forests of Sumatra with DNA that does not match any known species, the Yeren in the mountains of Hubei, investigated officially by the Chinese government, the Almas in Central Asia, which may be a living human ancestor, the Mapinguari in the Amazon, which may be a giant sloth that did not go extinct, and the Yeti in the Himalayas, which Sherpa guides and the greatest mountaineer in history claim to have seen. These accounts did not come from peoples who were in contact with each other. They came from cultures separated by oceans, by languages, by millennia, and they all describe the same thing. Which of the 7 would you least want to encounter alone in the dark? Tell me in the comments. And if you made it this far, subscribe. There's a lot more to explore. Stay on the marked trails.